One reason I am emphasizing these squat activities that are more sort of in the front squat position is for my squat technique, it's not too much different than my deadlift, where I'm relying a lot on my glutes, hamstrings, my posterior chain to move the weight because of my anatomy. So my quads don't get as much exercise as they really need. So these other front squat variations working more on the quadricep. So one final one to demonstrate again is a belt squat. It's a machine. Put the belt on your upper waist area, hook to it, and lift the weights. I find this replicates a front squat pretty effectively with minimizing some of the downs of the other ones. And I can load up the machine with quite a bit of weight. So I hook it, raise and lift. For safety here, I'll do that. I find I can get a greater range of motion using this machine. Today my knees are feeling quite sore, even at just like 90 degrees. So I'm going to limit that and finish the rest of my workout. Do some stretching and some cardio to get complete body workout. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you will see you again next time. One way to do a Zercher squat is to using a Smith type machine, and I got this big fat pad put on it to protect my elbow crease, and I have the safety set at the lowest portion of my squat because once I roll the bar back, I find it very hard to reposition it with my elbows on the pad. So let's see how this. Yep. So I get the weight in the crease of my arms here. Brace, lift up, and then roll the bar backwards off the foot. Squat down. At least at this weight, I am able to roll my arms and re-hook it at the upper position. There's multiple squat variations. One that emphasizes a more upright posture and again, strengthening the quads. And the core is a front squat where you take the bar in front of your chest and try and lay it across your shoulders to support the weight there. This requires a lot of flexibility in your shoulders and your wrists. It can be quite hard. I can't even get close to the proper position for that. Another version is called a Zercher squat, where you put the bar in the crease of your elbows and you squat from this position. I find this to be very uncomfortable, particularly as I start increasing the weight. So my go-to for this like front squat position Start off with a goblet squat, so I'm going to grab a fairly heavy dumbbell. Hold this sort of mid-chest in my squat position, and on this, trying to keep my upper body as upright as possible. Another variable you can play around with is the position of your feet, whether close together, shoulder width apart, or even further apart. This depends a lot on your hip flexibility, both internal and external rotation. So you can kind of check that, cross your leg, see how flexible you are pushing down, how flexible you are bringing it in. Being poorly flexible in both positions, I find I do best with my squat with my feet pretty wide apart, farther than shoulder width, and toes pointing out. So back to my goblet squat. We can practice this a couple different feet positions. So let's say shoulder width apart. And slightly wider, toes slightly pointed out. And even farther, more pointed. Again, make sure your knees are tracking over your feet. So you can assess doing that which feels most comfortable, gives you the best range of motion, and minimizes any stress on your knees. When you're doing a squat, let's say less vertical your shins are, the more the exercise becomes a balance between your quadriceps and your posterior gluteus and hamstring muscles. To maximize the exercises to strengthen the quadriceps, the front of the legs, you can move on to something like a hack squat or a ball squat against the wall. So using the hack squat machine, with some weight, the higher up your feet are on the platform, the more you're going to involve your quadriceps. And the lower your feet are, it becomes more of a balance between quadriceps and posterior. Putting my feet up pretty high. Moving on to some standard barbell squats, taking the ideas that we've just developed of where to keep your balance, center of mass, forward lean, your movement in your knees, and your hips, and your ankles. So many things to think of. So you want to start off pretty light, and I'm going to shoot for a certain number of reps, basically to where I'm down to my 1 or 2 reps in reserve. Squat's quite a complicated move. Many things to consider. One, I like to do them in front of a mirror so I can see where my hands are positioned. So when I re-rack, I don't want to pinch my hands. It'd be very painful. It's hard to do without the mirror. One way to try and sort this out is to do a wall squat where you're close to a wall, put your hands on it, put your face close to it, and see how close you can get your feet to the wall and still maintain your balance as you squat down. So I find for me that if my toes are less than 6 inches from the wall, I'm going to lose my balance, meaning I need to rely a little bit more on a forward lean to keep that center of mass in the properly loaded so I don't fall. I'm going to move on to my squat type exercises. First, I'm going to do some dynamic stretching of my shoulders, because I have very stiff shoulders and have a hard time getting the bar properly behind my upper back. So dynamic stretching, just stretch out, hold for a couple seconds, and then back. I'm going to move on to using a wooden pole and do some box squats. I like the wooden pole because getting it behind my neck, upper back, it's smooth, doesn't hurt as much as using a metal bar, and helps me again loosen up my shoulders. Just find a nice box, feet a little wider than shoulder width apart, keeping my knees over my toes, sitting down, up. On the internet, you might see a number of people describing how to do a squat properly. A lot depends on your personal anatomy, and a lot of influencers are describing how they do a squat properly. It depends on, let's say, the length of your femur, your ankle mobility, how short or long is your torso. With the squat with the bar, you need to keep the center of mass stable so you don't fall forward or backwards. And that might require more bend in your knees, more bend in your hips, again, depending on your personal anatomy. Since I'm concerned with this strained muscle and doing the rehabilitation for it, I'm not really looking at trying to maximize the lifts and hitting my small number of reps in reserve. Just trying to get through a small number of repetitions without causing further damage, stopping as soon as I feel anything unusual, or getting through 2 or 3 repetitions. Just the idea to get my nervous system functioning and encourage sending the healing energy to that muscle group, and getting enough exercise. The deadlift is one of these fundamental compound movements, not only exercising the legs, particularly the posterior hamstrings, glutes, calves, but also the back and the muscles in the arms and hands as well. So overall, a really excellent exercise, but you do have to be cautious with it. Enough for that. On this set, not too many repetitions, but on the eccentric portion, I'm going to try and keep my legs straighter, less bend in my knee, to try and do a bit of eccentric pull on that slightly injured hamstring. Take it easy, slow, make sure that I'm not getting any pain, but we're trying to strengthen that muscle that maybe was a little bit damaged. Takes a bit of coordination to do the greater knee bend, alternating with the less knee bend. So I'm not sure I demonstrated that particularly well, but I'll do one more set with that same concept. The other day I was doing a heavy deadlift and started to feel a strain in one of my left hamstrings. Didn't pull, but I stopped the exercise. Have been trying to stretch it out a little bit. So I'm avoiding real deadlifts for a couple weeks, make sure it heals, but I am working on stretching and slightly strengthening my hamstrings. So I like a good exercise for that is a Romanian deadlift, and a version called a straight leg deadlift where there's less bend in your knees, actually works more of the hamstrings. The more bend in your knees, even up to like 45 degrees, working the gluteus muscles. So I'm going to start off with about a 45-degree bend in my knees, and we'll see how this goes. Another thing to consider for deadlift exercise, others as well, is how strong is your grip strength. So the bar I'm using is a little bit bigger diameter than many of the Olympic bars at the facility. The bigger diameter requires more grip strength, so getting a second benefit from the exercise. So that one felt fine, not too many repetitions. Again, I have to be careful with this hamstring to not overdo it. So increase the weight a little bit and do another set. So last set, going for strength and power, and hopefully get through this. Again, I have the safety bars set, so if I fail on the left, which I don't plan to, but if it happens, the bar will set on this, gives me enough room to wiggle out from underneath it and be safe. Doing a bench press without the safety bars and no spotters is actually quite dangerous, and you should avoid that. Okay, so I like to alternate let's say a chest and arms exercise with a posterior chain or legs. So next I'm going to go to Romanian deadlifts, and we'll demonstrate that. So one more set, well actually I have two more sets. Next set, again, same concept. Hope to get a few repetitions and then stop when I'm down to my reserve. So through the course of these 5 sets, you can see I'm exercising in all the different ranges for endurance, strength, power, and hypertrophy. Not in that order. The fewer number of reps is geared more towards strength and power. More reps are endurance and hypertrophy. So I've increased the weight again. I'm going to go for a certain number of repetitions on this using good form. As you progress in the number of sets, you find that you're getting a little bit tired, so you may not be able to do very many repetitions, but again, trying to hit that magic 1 or 2 reps in reserve. And again, if you struggle on a repetition, that's telling you you've gotten close. Plan is to do 2 more sets, so I'm going to increase the weight, give myself 1 or 2 minutes rest, and then resume. I find in doing bench press that my feet are kind of dancing and sliding around on the floor. It's a full body exercise, so you want your core, your legs all contributing to the move. So you can put some plates down, which raises your feet a little bit up, and in particularly this floor is slippery, keeps my feet from moving. So the same routine with this set. Try and hit 1 or 2 reps in reserve, doing my best form and powering up on the struggle. Studies have shown that it's best to stop 1 or 2 reps before muscle failure. So if I find that I'm struggling on a repetition, that's telling me it's time to stop. So for my first strength set, I'm going to do bench press. This is done with some slow repetitions, particularly on the eccentric lowering, with a pause with the bar on my chest, and then a powerful lift off. Each repetition done separately, so there's a bit of a pause at the top as well. Don't know how many I can do with this weight, but this will be a first set, trying to hit that 1 or 2 reps in reserve. Give myself 1 to 2 minutes rest, increase the weight slightly, and then hit my next set. So starting off with a warm-up, just some arm circles with my palms down, about 45 degrees up from the floor, and reverse. Palms up, and to progress you can go more towards horizontal, remembering to keep your shoulder blades down somewhat together, trying to open up the rotator cuff, and reverse. Shake it out. I like to do some trunk twists, and your head can follow your shoulders. If that makes you dizzy, you can just look straight ahead. I like my knuckles to kind of slap my back over where my kidneys are. It's supposed to increase the blood flow to the kidneys. And just some body weight squats. So sitting down on a box, very important exercise for seniors is if you can lift up off a chair or a box without your arms. And let's do a couple more. And balance exercise, so just one knee lift. Hold for a few seconds, the other side. Saw a little video from a neuroscientist who said you can help preserve brain function by brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand. I tried that. What I decided was, first I will brush my teeth with my dominant hand, and then I will brush them a second time with my non-dominant. So I do an effective job of brushing. Let's just lift your legs out to the side, trying to maintain that balance. When you do balance exercises, I think it's good to have a sense of humor, because if you stumble a little bit, that means you're stressing your system, and over time you'll get better. Little tricks, think about pushing your support leg into the floor and contracting your core muscles. Welcome to this edition of Silver Sneakers Boom Muscle. In my last video, I discussed findings from a recent study done in sports medicine looking at ways to optimize strength. And saw a few problems with the study. It was basically a meta-analysis, not new investigation. But I was trying to do a plan where I documented my percentage of my 1 rep max and number of repetitions, trying to replicate some of the findings in the studies. Well, I found out after a exercise day or two that it became very complicated. For example, here's one sample from my journal, and then the following day, you know, lots of sets, lots of repetitions, lots of numbers, and trying to calculate out the of my 1 rep max became very cumbersome, taking longer to do that than the actual workout itself. So I've decided to try and make it simpler, where because the benefit is the exercise itself, not calculating out the numbers. So instead, what I'm doing is just trying to hit my reps in reserve on each set, going from lighter weights but more repetitions to heavier weights with fewer repetitions, trying to hit that sort of magic number of 1 or 2 reps in reserve. Just one caveat: if I hit 20 reps, I'm just going to stop there, because I'm exercising my endurance muscles, and conceivably I could go into a lot of repetitions and very little additional benefit. So mostly I'm planning on doing 5 sets of each exercise, increasing the weight between each set with progressive overload, and trying to hit a decreasing number of repetitions because I'm increasing the weight, but still hitting that 1 to 2 magic number reps in reserve.